All right, and joining us now is Amber Athey, Washington editor of The Spectator and author of the book Snowflakes Revolt. Amber, great to see you again. Okay, let's get right to it here and talk about this Bidenomics plan. The President Biden spoke about this afternoon in Chicago, his plan to transform the economy. The name is, as we know, reminiscent of Reaganomics, but not exactly the same thing. Let's talk about that and your thoughts on this plan.
I think Bidenomics would be better branded as Bidenflation because that's primarily what we've seen under this presidency. Biden has been pushing these massive trillion-dollar so-called recovery bills without any acknowledgement that pumping so many dollars into the economy when we already have inflationary pressure is certainly not helping Americans be able to afford these staple goods that they need in order to take care of their families. And Biden is taking credit for the job increases since the end and wrapping down of the pandemic. But the reality, of course, is that these jobs were going to come back no matter who was in office because the economy was eventually reopened. This was not anything to do with presidential policy. And the last jobs report was not the huge success that the Biden administration claimed it to be. The Biden administration, the household survey, rather, found that most of the jobs that were created by Biden, or quote unquote created, were actually second and third jobs being picked up by people who couldn't afford to just get by on one. So Bidenomics might be a catchy campaign slogan, but I think there's plenty of room for Republicans to push back on the policies that he's pushing.
I want to pivot here. A Democratic congresswoman from Connecticut got lambasted on Twitter for what she posted the other day about abortion and the Catholic faith. Representative Rosa DeLauro tweeted in part, quote, "I am Catholic, baptized, raised, and confirmed. The fundamental tenets of my faith compel me to defend a woman's right to access abortion." Amber, help us unpack this one if you can.
There are quite a few Democrats and even a group called Catholics for Choice that have basically warped church teaching into meaning that people get to do whatever they want. And the Catholic Church is very clear on the mortal sin that is abortion. It's a grave sin. They view it as murder, and that couldn't be clearer. It's right there in the catechism. So I don't understand what her argument is here. President Biden has said very similar things about abortion by claiming that even though he personally opposes it, he believes that a woman should have the right to choose and that he's not going to enforce his morality on other people. But again, that's just not consistent with what the Catholic Church teaches. And it's why quite a few bishops have refused to give these Democratic politicians communion because they're not in keeping with the tenets of the church.
Yeah, it is baffling to hear that comment on Twitter. Anyway, staying inside the Beltway in Montgomery County, Maryland, there was a huge rally yesterday outside the headquarters of the Montgomery County Public Schools. Hundreds of parents were there protesting the district's LGBTQ curriculum and the fact that parents are not allowed to opt out their children of those classes. And this particular issue, it brought parents from just about every race, creed, and color together. Your thoughts on this, Amber?
It really is an interesting crossover event that's been happening in Maryland. We're seeing parents coming from Hindu and Islamic backgrounds joining with Christian parents who object to the fact that schools are teaching their children about LGBTQ topics without their consent. And the left has tried to refer to this as book banning when parents are trying to make sure libraries don't have sexually explicit content in them. They have accused the people who oppose parents not having a say in education of being Christian fascists. And I think this movement in Maryland shows just how wrong this is. This is about parents who have reasonable, real objections to the content that their kids are being exposed to, and they should have a right as parents to be able to have a say in what their kids are learning in school.
Amber, we have about 30 seconds left or so, but I quickly want to get to this. I know you have a new newsletter out called Culture Shock. Tell us more about that and also what else you're following.
Absolutely. This is a weekly newsletter following the biggest stories in our culture, and this week's article is about Georgetown University, a Catholic the oldest Catholic college in the country, hiring Dr. Anthony Fauci, claiming that his dedication to public service is in line with the Catholic teaching of that college. However, Fauci repeatedly lied to the American people about the pandemic. He did not care for the whole person, cura personalis, as one of Georgetown's slogans reads, when he locked down the country without any concern for how that would affect Americans. And so this hiring, I think, is disgraceful, and Georgetown should be ashamed of itself.
All right, we're going to leave it right there. Amber, so great to be with you and get your insights. Always appreciate it.
Thank you.